Our first post this week is Beware the Unsurprised. I guess I'll start it.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
We didn't pick an order.
Yeah, we really should have thought of that beforehand. So basically, the point of the post is that people often try to not look surprised. Some people may actually be genuinely unsurprised when their models are wrong, because, as Eliezer says, that a reader pointed out, if their models are so vague that they don't understand the implications one way or the other, they may not be surprised, or if they appear unsurprised, they may appear unsurprised if they fail to emotionally connect to the implications. For example, an asteroid is going to collide with the Earth in 10 years, and they're just like, okay, let's get little Cersei to the doctor.
Oh, I will put in a relevant Saturday morning breakfast cereal to this. It's not they emotionally register it, but it's hilarious and it's relevant, so going for it.
Oh, right. I guess we'll have to actually put it on the website.
I could try and paraphrase the cartoon, but I would ruin it. You got to enjoy SMBC as it is on the page.
Heck yeah.
Can't really do audio versions of cartoons.
Yeah. And also, they mentioned that some people don't want to appear to be surprised by surprising seeming data.
You mean unsurprised?
Well, yeah, appear to be unsurprised because that makes them look more confident and in control and competent. Like, well, I wasn't surprised by this. My model was already perfectly fine the way it was. I totally expected this. So, these are all situations in which people may be unsurprised by what is a surprising event in their model.
And then there's like the classic example of bystander effect, where there's a number of things going on, but one of them is like you can look calm and unperturbed, and it like gives you like this air of this is tangential to bystander effect, but like if everyone's freaking out and you're keeping your cool, you kind of look like a cool person. And since everyone's kind of trying to do that a little bit, then like somebody collapses in front of you on the street and like you look cool because I'm a cool, composed person. And like you're casually looking around to see if this is an emergency, but everyone's doing the same thing you're doing. So everyone assesses that it's not an emergency because no one's overreacting.
Yeah. That was going to be the second point.
Okay. Yeah. My bad. I jumped ahead.
No, it's okay. Did we have anything to say on the first point aside from what we already had? The whole... No?
Not really.
Okay. I do think it's kind of scary that some people might just have such vague models that they don't even realize they're surprised, because the model really didn't predict anything either way.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what he talked about in the last post too, is like then you don't really have a model of reality. You just have like this thing that you say you believe, but like it doesn't mean anything. It's not connected to any other beliefs.
Yeah.
That model's not paying rent, right?
So going to your second point that you jumped on is that, if you're looking around and everyone else is acting cool and you're acting cool, then nobody is actually treating an emergency like an emergency, right? And he's saying that, right, since everyone else is also basing their actions on what everyone else is doing, then everyone may believe that something isn't really as big a deal as it is, like someone collapsing on the street or something. Therefore, everyone looks unruffled, fails to act, and so appearing unsurprised, even when you are, or pretending to yourself that you weren't surprised, is both personally detrimental and socially detrimental. It has negative effects on the rest of society when you act unsurprised on purpose, because that is information that you are denying to other people, and things that may need to be acted on are not.
Yeah, I think this is kind of related to one of your strengths as a rationalist is the ability to notice when you're confused. Confused and surprised have like slightly different meanings here, but it kind of lends a lot more weight to something if you're surprised by it, and gives you a stronger motivation to update. And yeah, when you're signaling that to everyone around you, then everybody's updating their models the appropriate amount.
Yeah.
I don't know. It feels like the kind of thing I've talked about with the two of you, but I don't remember doing it. Did I mention, at least a few years ago, Julia Galiff mentioned on one of her podcasts that she kept a surprise journal?
Yes, you did mention that.
Yeah, which is just a nice way to like, even just like lowbrow calibrate, like, and I'm not writing these down, I guess, because I'm lazy and don't write stuff down, but I've been like trying to document just like minor things about my life a little bit more, not as a regimented thing, but like mainly just to improve my like, in this case, my commute. My commute is a little shorter than I thought, which kind of surprised me, which means like I can sleep in for like 15 minutes if I felt like it and get to work still on time. Like somehow the train goes about the same distance as the train that I used to take to my last job, but it's like 10 minutes shorter.
Huh.
So that's cool.
Yeah.
It's not, again, it's a very, very minor surprise, but it's one that I noticed literally in the last 2 days. So
I should absolutely keep a surprise journal. I feel like that would make me a better rationalist.
And I think it's just kind of a fun practice in mindfulness too. And it'll help you like notice when you're surprised.
And help you track like your changes over the years.
Yeah.
Yeah, or help you pay more attention to the things that you're not surprised by, but that you are still noticing in the background.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that you ignore just because you're so used to seeing it that it's like blended into, it's camouflaged. What do you think about, there's this kind of other thing that the media does about being over surprised or exaggerating their surprise about everything new that we learn.
Oh, right.
I feel like that might have the same kind of negative bystander effect, but like to the opposite extent.
Like, you mean like the outrageous science headlines, or?
Yeah, like every science headline ever is like, scientists are baffled.
Yeah, my general rule, and I didn't invent these, but there's a handful of them that I don't know if I could track down the name of the list, but it's like how to like notice clickbait and just answer to it. So like if the headline is in the form of a question, the answer is always no.
Mm-hmm. That's a common one.
So, or like scientists can't believe, it's like, yes they can, or you're wrong. So yeah, I'm not a social scientist, but I would bet $1,000 that there's no way that's not damaging society.
Yeah.
I mean, you hear again, big capital words headline, this new revolutionary treatment for whatever. I can't remember how many times back before I left Facebook I saw that, we've got a treatment or a early detection for Alzheimer's or something, and it's still not around because it turns out like whatever, the ability to smell peanut butter was like loosely correlated with like 30 people or something, right?
Yeah, or
So-
someone's proposed like a phase 1 clinical study or even something preclinical, like, okay, now we have some evidence that this might do this and we're going to test it, and some, journalist jumps on it as, aha, we have found a new drug.
Right,
for
and that's
Alzheimer's.
And that's super common with like, the idea that like the plastic in water bottles causes cancer. That was from like one study by a grad student at or some Ivy League college, whatever. And their lab equipment was tainted with BPA. They're like testing tubes, and
Yeah.
they discovered that, published the the result got redacted, or they published the update.
Yeah.
But like nobody notices that. They catch the headline, "Cancer in your water," and it never goes away. And that's still a thing that people worry about today, right?
Yeah.
The
Did you
vaccine concern that people have from Andrew Wakefield's bullshit
Oh my God.
stuff.
Which was actual fraud.
Yeah,
Not
which-
just someone fucked up, but straight up intentional fraud.
But all the average anti-vaxxer knows is that some doctor found this was a thing, and then whatever, maybe it got suppressed or something. What they don't know is that he got his license revoked for malpractice and fraud. Yeah. So
Did you see the recent thing about the incredibly strong correlations between air particulate pollution and Alzheimer's onset? Yeah, apparently it's a really lot of still only correlation, and they would have to look more into it somehow, though I don't know how you would double blind that sort of test. But it made me really think twice about living in a dense urban environment.
This is not that dense.
No. This is not that dense at all. I'm out in the suburbs, and it's pretty nice. But like, I'm less likely to want to live near a major street or in downtown Denver itself.
Denver
Yeah.
in general is just not that dense. You should go see New York or New Jersey sometime.
Yeah.
Everything is so far apart from everything else here. It's ridiculous.
I think it's just the idea like the less the merrier. But yeah, that's nerve-wracking. This is totally an aside. Well, too far of an aside to get into. Other than I'll skip straight to the punchline, which seems like a non sequitur, that it's a travesty that you can't sign up for cryonics, or that rather you're not whatever, you can't cash in your cryonics benefits if you commit suicide and or use the whatever they call it if you elect to die from a terminal illness.
Right. Yeah.
So like if you have Alzheimer's and you're like, oh great, I can preserve my brain while it's still in good shape, you can't do that yet.
Yeah.
You have to wait until Alzheimer's kills you, which means that your brain is just a mess, and there's very little worth saving at the end anyway. So
You might be able to stop eating and drinking. I'm not sure if that would trigger the suicide autopsy or not.
That
I'll
would
keep
be
that in
really
mind.
difficult, though.
It would.
Eh.
I saw. Never mind.
All right,
This is a
yep.
tangent.
We'll have to save it. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's a dark topic. Anyway,
Yeah.
On a happier note, sign up for cryonics. It's cheaper than you think, and
Yes.
it's cool.
Yes. Both me and Steven were signed up. Are you signed up yet, Jess?
no, but I do
Damn
plan
it, Jess.
to.
What if you had died camping this weekend?
Yeah,
Also, it's cool is also a pun, because cryonics.
Oh, God.
Sorry. Yeah.
Everyone loves puns except me.
just have this mental image of somebody in like a cryo tube with like dark sunglasses, and yeah, double thumbs up.
if I get to choose, that's how I'm going in.
Hell yeah. All right, how about the third alternative?
Third alternative is a good one. Who wants to read this?
I'll jump in on this one.
Okay.
So, classically, the third alternative is also known as like the false dilemma or the false dichotomy or the excluded middle or the package deal fallacy. Basically, it's the either or option.
Yeah.
You know, we need. Give me a stupid example.
He used Santa as an example. That was a good one.
What was?
Santa?
Right, yeah. So Santa, we need the Santa myth for children to give them, hope and a sense of mystery or whatever. I actually forget the argument.
Yeah, and
Even
also
I read
they,
it like
they
4
will
hours ago.
act better as humans if they, yeah.
So then you say, well, if we take that away, then they won't have anything to give it to them.
Yeah,
And
they'll
so,
have no hope. Everything will be joyless and dry and empty in their lives. Plus, they'll be naughty all the time.
right. So it's a great example because it's obviously bullshit. So there's a million other things that you can do to actually treat the goal of like, let's give kids a sense of wonder, mystery, and responsibility for their actions or something.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like just giving them presents is enough too.
Yeah.
Like, has anyone tried that? Just like, hey, on this day, you get presents. Like, are the kids more excited if it's like, we don't know how these presents got here?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe.
I think so. Like, getting presents is still awesome, but like the mystery behind it is cool. But like you said, there's much better ways to give them that sense of mystery.
Yeah.
Like, did you know that we're actually traveling around that sun up there and it's a ball of flaming nuclear gas?
Yeah. I mean, throw some science at them and then throw a present at them and get that association going early and then make some young scientists.
Dude, that'd be
Yeah.
awesome.
There you go.
Whenever I put up my Christmas tree, I always put like a book under it and I call it my tree of knowledge rather than my Christmas tree.
Well, I love it. That's
So
awesome.
nerdy, I love it.
I've got a niece that I can start bombarding with books for trying to. Well, I don't know if I'll be around her enough to try and like get that immediate pigeon feedback to make her to meld her into a scientist, but I'll see what I can do.
Cool.
All right. So the noble lie is the generally all package deal of fallacies where like it's yes, we all acknowledge the people who in the know, yes, we know it's a lie, but we tell it because society couldn't function without it.
Right.
Plato had his for like people have like a core of different element in them, and like the gold people, that's why there's like caste systems, and like just you happen to have a lower thing, and if you're born believing that, I think that's in the Republic.
Oh, okay.
So he believed in that. He didn't believe in that noble lie, it seems like, but he was like, that's something that we could push to keep society together.
Okay.
Or like the very popular one of like Afterlife-ism,
Yeah.
where of course we, the sophisticated people, we know that you're just gonna die when you die, but you guys couldn't handle that, so very condescendingly we'll lie to you to keep you sheltered from the horrible truth.
Yeah.
It's not clear to me in that argument like how the noble liars think that they're doing okay, but no one else could. It is condescending. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough.
Or like, yeah, the reason that they're calling this the third alternative is the idea that there's only this lie or something terrible as an alternative, and there's not other stuff you could do. Like the example of it's either Santa or your kid is miserable, and there's all kinds of other things that you might be able to do to make your kid not miserable.
Yeah. I think the core argument is that generally the noble liars and the excluded middlers are saying like your only real options are either this thing that I have already proposed or else nothing at all. And Eliezer is saying that we can and should think of third alternatives, other ways of handling problems. It's not that your only alternative to believing in Santa or in believing in the afterlife is to not believe in Santa or not believe in anything. There's other alternatives that one can think of. One just has to do that.
Yeah, and that's actually like harder than it sounds. Eliezer did bring up the just set a timer and think of stuff for 5 minutes. There's I like looking up there's a narrow framing exercise you can do, and that's kind of a similar idea where when you're trying to make a decision, you kind of like think of, okay, I've got two alternatives, and narrow framing is the idea that you're only thinking in terms of these two options, and you're actually like psychologically blocking yourself from thinking about anything else outside of that.
Is this the first post? I don't remember if he brought up the 5 minutes by the clock thing before. I noticed it in this post, though. I think this is the first post where he actually starts the meme of think about it by 5 minutes by the clock. Don't just like say you're going to think about it and then give up after a bit. Look at a clock and really think and brainstorm for 5 minutes.
Yeah, so this must be coming up shortly before hold off on proposing solutions, because that's an important part. Like Jess mentioned, like the narrow framing effect. If you grab one or two guesses or whatever solutions that in your 5 minutes of thinking, then you spend the next 4 minutes and 30 seconds just analyzing those two, you've prematurely cut yourself off from like the search space, right?
Mm-hmm.
And more than likely you've you didn't think of those two from like nowhere. You just grabbed two quick ideas that were already available. You haven't really considered alternatives.
Yeah, and like the reason for that, which he gets into in this post, is the number of alternatives can be huge, so you need some kind of stopping criterion. And he says whether you're looking to buy a house or when you're looking to buy a house, you can't compare every house. At some point, you have to stop looking and decide. So that's why you would want to make some kind of exercise where there's a set in stopping point, like setting a clock.
But go on.
I was gonna say there's a nice quote in here that I think distills kind of the difficulty of this. Like there's a bunch actually. This is a good one. Everyone read it. It's fun. But like, how can we obtain third alternatives? Well, the first step in obtaining a third alternative is deciding to look for one, and the last step is the decision to accept it. It sounds obvious, and yet most people fail on these two steps rather than within the search process.
Right.
Like, it's just basically, the first thing is like realizing that someone's come to you with a bullshit dilemma, and you're picking between two crappy choices, and just saying, you know what, I'm going to go find something else. And that there's usually a ton of stuff to look for in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there is. Some of it can be really hard to think about for various reasons. And that's where the psychology comes into play. And I don't think this article really gets into it. I could think, for example, a benign one could be if you're looking for a new house, you might just be artificially restricting yourself to neighborhoods that you've already visited and that you kind of have an idea of what they look like in your head. But you don't think about that consciously while you're looking for a house.
Yeah.
Or you could also, if you're trying to figure out, oh man, what should I do? Like, my relationship's not going so well, and you're kind of thinking about, well, couples counseling, or you could leave that person. And then, like, that's another thing that your brain just might be preventing you from even thinking about. You just flinch away from it subconsciously.
All these techniques work so well together. It's like, it sounds like nerdy reverence, but I mean, the ability to, hold off on proposing solutions, not be afraid to flinch into scary looking ideas, and just stare into like the uncomfortable possibility, like, oh wait, the scary thing that I'm trying to avoid thinking about, I should actually like think about that and decide as objectively as I can if it's a good option, right?
He also touches on what I think later will turn into the privileging the hypothesis post. It's a quick note about motivated cognition here. He says, but what about when our conscious motives for the search, the criteria we can admit to ourselves, don't square with subconscious influences, like you were just saying? When we are carrying out an allegedly altruistic search, a search for an altruistic policy, and we find a strategy that benefits others but disadvantages ourselves, well, we don't stop looking there. We go on looking. Telling ourselves we're looking for a strategy that brings greater altruistic benefit, of course. But suppose we find a policy that has some defensible benefit and also just happens to be personally convenient. Then we stop the search at once. In fact, we'll probably resist any suggestion that we start looking again, pleading lack of time, perhaps. And I mean, that's wonderful and true, right? Like, the best way to get, I think they say on the internet, the best way to get the right answer to something is to post the wrong answer.
Yes.
Because then everyone else is like, that's not right, and they spend all the time doing the looking for you and disproving you. And yeah, it's the same thing. Like, if you really want to test a claim, then you can put forth some crappy argument and find the people who are willing to prove you wrong, I guess.
Yeah, there's a bunch of exercises you could do yourself too. That's actually a good one, is just coming up with the opposite of whatever you're trying to figure out. Making yourself brainstorm, like, how could I write the crappiest novel possible? That was actually an exercise I did one time, and it was really funny because then I just went through the list and kind of reversed everything, and I was like, now here's how I should write my novel.
Oh, cool.
And I generated a list I wouldn't have thought of if I was just thinking about, like, how could I write something cool?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And see, like, that's the kind of like third alternative strategy that you probably wouldn't get from your average, like, learn how to write textbook, right?
Yeah, I love doing stuff like that. Just if I could go, like, one more that I really love is how, if I was like, this is especially when you're trying to come up with a solution to some hard problem, it's like, okay, if I had like all the money in the world, how would I solve this? Or like, if there was some like clever way I could cheat to get to the finish line, how would I do that? And that can actually help you come up with stuff that you just were blocking yourself from thinking about, either because you're scrupulous or poor or whatever. I
like that a lot. Yeah, I don't have much else to add to this one. I feel like I actually kind of spoiled the next one because I forgot that it was that was the third post.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was the end of this one. I read them all again really quickly this afternoon, and I guess forgot that I clicked 3 tabs rather than 2.
Right. So the next post then is third alternatives for Afterlife-ism,
which I feel like isming everything is kind of condescending, but
I think
I'll
it's
let it
supposed to
slide.
be. It's
Yeah.
sort of a needling at something,
It is.
jokingly, roasting it.
Like, I had a conversation with my life insurance agent who's also signed up for cryonics and is a big proponent of it. And in fact, he wrote a book. Rudy Hoffman. Everyone look him up if you want. He's also got a book on Amazon. That's Rudy, R-U-D-I, Hoffman, I think with 2 Fs. Anyway, if you do contact him and get signed up for cryonics, tell him I sent you. I don't get anything out of it. I just would be happy to hear it. So, I think we were talking about, like with anti-cryonicists, and like the mean word for them is like deathists.
Yeah.
Like, no one's a deathist. Like, no one's a self-described deathist. If they
Right.
are, they're being a troll. And
Right.
if they're not being a troll, then they're an idiot. So I realize I just like define somebody out of existence, but whatever. But we use it to encompass people who, are okay with death. And you attach an ist to it to make it sound like it's an intentional thing on their part, which makes it seem ridiculous, which I get how that's a move, but now I'm tired
It's a
enough.
good move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're being sneaky,
You know what? I'm willing to use a tiny little bit of gray arts to get people to sign up for cryonics, especially because it's a very obvious gray art.
I knew
you
you were
just
gonna-
called someone a deathist.
I know-
It's
I
not
knew
like
you-
they're...
I knew you were going to say that, so I'm on board. And
Okay.
it's sneaky, but it's sneaky in a good way.
Yeah.
It's kind of a reframing exercise.
Thank you.
That's a much better,
better way.
Yes. High five.
So, third alternative to Afterlife-ism. Afterlife-ism is exactly what it sounds like. People can't go on living knowing they're going to die, so we have to give them this fantasy of an afterlife, right? And the question Eliezer proposes is that if the problem is that people are terrified of ceasing to exist, is there some other way to combat that aside from this crazy afterlife belief thing? And he asks, did you close your eyes and think creatively about the problem for 5 minutes? Like as an actual straight up yes or no factual question to anyone at all. Like either people who are pro this or against it. Have you just stopped for 5 minutes and really thought of other ways of ending this existential terror besides the religion thing? Which is, first of all, a thing that I would like to say to a number of people I know who are like, I want to say pragmatically religious. They seem like they don't necessarily believe in any of the Jesus and mystical spiritual stuff, but just think it's a good thing for society in general. I'm like, that's great. Have you actually thought for 5 minutes if there's other ways to solve these problems that you say exist? Because I think there might be. And I think almost all of them would say, no, I have not sat down for 5 minutes with that goal of thinking of other solutions.
To be fair, it's rare that I actually set aside 5 minutes. I mean, even since reading this post, 7 or 8 years ago, like I've actually set a timer maybe twice. But what I have done is actually set a deliberate like focus period, whether like I'm watching a clock or not.
Yeah.
But I think I
that is-
did do that for cryonics, but I probably spent. Then I thought about it for 5 minutes, and then I spent months deliberating and talking to other chronicists I knew. But I don't know. Don't take my lack of actually engaging the exercise as a way to do it. I think whether or not you're using a clock, the idea is like that you don't say, all right, I'm going to think about this, and then like not specify a time, and then decide that you've done enough thinking after 30 seconds. That's what you're trying to avoid by setting a clock.
Yeah. So Eliezer says that at the very least, in alternatives for Afterlife-ism, I would cite medical nanotechnology, the argument from actuarial escape velocity, cryonics, or meddling with the forbidden ultimate technology, which when you click, these are all links to different things. Actuarial escape velocity is the idea that as life extension gets better and better, we might get to the point where life extension starts going faster than you're aging.
What I think Aubrey de Grey calls longevity escape velocity.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the meddling with the forbidden ultimate technology, if you click the link, is over to intelligence.org, an AI research place. And I just wanted to point out that the reason this is called meddling with the forbidden ultimate technology is in part because at the time he was writing it, there was a moratorium about talking about AI stuff on Less Wrong. When he first left Overcoming Bias, a lot of conversation kept like going back to that and distracting from anything else anyone was trying to say, specifically about rationality and biases and those sorts of things. So he's like, all right, I'm starting this website Less Wrong, but for the first, I don't remember how many months it was, like 6 months or 9 months or something, but for the first X months, no one is allowed to talk about AI at all. We're talking about other subjects, and then we'll get back to AI. And I believe that is part of the reason it was called that, and also, for fun.
Which is a really smart like strategy. The whole endeavor of creating Less Wrong, I think, is just an awesome example of taking a long goal, thinking of of a way to do it that's actually hard. He wrote a blog post every day for like 2.5 years, and all the steps that he did in the middle, and including like the idea of this whole endeavor. Correct me if I'm wrong. Other than raising their sanity waterline, basically it's to raise it high enough to get people to send money to fund AI research. And so, like, if you're daisy chaining people along the way to give them all the cognitive tools they need to see that this is a good idea, and to try to bridge that huge inferential distance by keep dropping AI all along the way, they're going to keep trying to jump to the end of the daisy chain road rather than walking it, right?
Right.
And if they don't walk it, they're not going to learn everything they need to learn on the way there. So if they just, I think, again, just high five. I think that was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, also there's a lot of other cool things that have come out of the rationalist community than AI.
Totally.
AI is cool and groovy, but there's a lot of really nice instrumental stuff that I have gotten personally, epistemic stuff, you know. There's all kinds of good stuff.
Effective altruism was one of the major spawning grounds for that. Was also less wrong.
Yeah, I didn't mean to say that was the only thing, or maybe even the only intended goal, but like, if the collateral damage for getting more funding and more social support for AI research is making better, smarter, happier people, then like, so be it. I don't think it was that cold and calculating, but maybe it would have been if Robin Hanson did it. Cold and calculating in the best loving way.
Yeah.
Hanson's great.
And also, you know, it is a common theme that this AI is the ultimate technology and probably should be forbidden until we figure out how to do it without destroying the world. So,
fingers crossed.
Yeah.
God, that sounds like sort of grim.
He does say that any one of those third alternatives that he mentioned stretches credulity less than a soul, which, I mean, yeah. Because
depending on your priors. But
well, yeah, magic has been proven true 0 times.
Right.
We've proven
you
we
haven't
have all
heard
kinds of medical technology. And
you have not yet heard the good news of our Lord and Savior?
that's exactly what I was going to say. There is miracles, there is magic. Yeah. Anyway, if you're coming from there, there's a lot more distance to cross there.
Yeah. But yeah, at least each of those things is physically possible as opposed to a soul, which isn't.
Totally.
not even a defined thing.
Right.
Really.
Yeah, I had chronics in the mind because I was talking to my life insurance agent yesterday evening, and what's today, Tuesday? So yeah, a new coworker started my job yesterday, and me and a other guy in the office, when I was leaving work early to go talk to my life insurance guy, I gave him the 5-minute pitch on cryonics, and I forget where I was going with that, but it was fun and rewarding, and I'm well past the point where I'm like socially anxious about talking about it, so that was cool.
Yeah. I mean, like, souls are on the face completely ridiculous, and like if you get a lot of inculcation of it in your early childhood, it can eventually be like accepted, but then on deep examination it's also completely ridiculous. So on both ends of the spectrum, it's just completely dumb. Like, what it's hard to even compare the two, you know.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing, and I get where like, oh, you know, medical technology, you're telling me that's more likely than souls, says somebody, and then like the answer is like yes. Like, one, yes, it stretches credulity because it's mystery future tech, but it stays within everything that we currently understand about physics.
Yeah.
There's no reason this shouldn't work, and like for me to believe what you believe about magic or souls or whatever, like that requires me to throw out the established model of physics, and you're not providing enough extraordinary evidence for why that's true for me to throw away the standard model.
Yes.
There's a last bullet point here that I wanted to ask you about because I think you put in the comment on it.
I did.
So, Afterlife-ism stands immediately convicted because it cannot be the best strategy, even as a noble lie.
Yeah.
And Inyash asks, really?
Yeah, because he stressed even as a noble lie, and I think that all those tech things are definitely well, I mean, they're true. They're not mystical fake magic stuff, which is a huge point in their favor. But they're all things that can work in the future, right? And so they're very convincing, not very convincing. They're much more appealing to people who still have a lot of future in front of them. Like Eliezer wrote this in his 20s. The majority of the reader base then was late teens to late 20s. Even nowadays, rationality is more of a 20s to 30s kind of thing. There's not that many people over the age of like their mid 40s in the movement. So all those things are still great for people who are youngish, but like someone who's 80 and on their deathbed, they're obviously not going to get the benefit of medical nanotechnology or the longevity escape velocity or meddling with AIs, because they got like a year. At best, maybe they got cryonics.
And that's if they can afford it.
That's if they can afford it. Well, yeah, that's if they can afford it, which is a big if to a lot of people who are in their 80s that don't already have a life insurance policy for this. And it just seems like for someone like that, the only thing you have left is either accept that I'm going to be extinguished or believe in the noble lie. Like, all those other things don't work once you're ready at the end of the life. Whereas the soul-ism thing, you're at least like, ooh, there's a chance, because the other things are now impossible.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think like if you're on your deathbed and there's no time to do anything else, like it would sure be nice to believe a consoling lie.
Yeah.
Like just to stave off the horror of the next few however long you have left.
Maybe it depends on the person. I think Christopher Hitchens was just fine.
Yeah,
That's true. But to him, death wasn't a horror. He was, I think, what we might call a deathist. Like he wasn't pro-death, but he wasn't like I don't think death was the enemy to him.
Right.
And like Richard Dawkins, I'll find a great YouTube video of it. He has in the opening, I think the beginning of the second chapter of Unweaving the Rainbow, it's this beautiful couple paragraphs about the in the scientific sense of the word miracle of being alive.
Yeah, the implausibility that you managed to be here and have any experiences at all.
Yeah, you get time in the sun, in the universe, and on the earth. It's that just saying that fills me with this like sense of gratitude and wonder. And there was a time like between when I like got out of religion and when I got into, I don't know, being totally horrified of death, that I found that very consoling for a few years. And in a way it is. Like, even if I end up being annihilated, like, being alive was cool. I'm glad I had the chance.
Yeah.
Sure be nice if it, didn't go away, but I think, I was going to say as far as, like, another noble lie, a better noble lie, I think, by anyone else's, like, by the rationalist metric would be, like, chronics works.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah. Oh, no, this works great. It's just, be ready in 20 years. So
I think it's a lie. I think it's something that you hope for.
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
but if we were going to pitch it in the form of a noble lie, it would be a better lie than the soul thing because it's more plausible.
Yeah,
and it actually has the collateral damage benefit of saving people.
Right, or at least potentially saving them.
Yeah.
I think the Afterlife-ism also has all this inertia from all of society, like being on this train. Not all of society, but a lot of society being on this train and pushing this, and it being taught to you as a child. All those things are advantages that are absolutely unfair and stupid, but I think do make it easier to swallow and to find comfort in it, especially when you really need it at the end of your life for a bunch of people.
Yeah, if that's where you're at. Like, I remember when I was, like, during that fun phase in high school where I argued religion with a lot of people, that'd be kind of like their, like, line of retreat where they'd, like, take their last stand of, like, you're going to tell somebody on their deathbed that, like, religion's bullshit and that it's not true.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for the first few times I was asked that, I was like, yeah, they should know better.
Mm-hmm.
But that wasn't, like, really thinking. When you get a moment to really think about it, like, no, I'm not going to ruin someone's happy delirium, like, when they're literally dying.
I think there's a difference between going and, like, if it's someone who already believes in a soul and is comforted by that, like, bursting into their deathbed and being like, hey, guess what? But, like, if it were, I wouldn't tell somebody who didn't believe in souls that, like, oh, don't worry, you're gonna live forever in Cloudland, playing a harp with little angel wings and doing I don't know what all day.
Watching after people,
yeah,
they spend a lot of time doing. Yeah,
that's why I think it's a slight overstatement to say that Afterlife-ism is immediately convicted, because it cannot be the best strategy even as a noble lie. I think in some rare cases it can.
I don't think Eliezer would disagree with you on that.
Okay.
But that's me totally. Whatever, typical minding, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm just thinking, like, I don't think he had that edge case in mind.
Okay.
I think he thought of, like, the general, like, lie of Afterlife-ism that we give is better supplanted by any of these examples in the general case.
I think it's even better supplanted by just thinking about death better.
Yeah, the Richard Dawkins version is beautiful and enchanting and comforting in a way.
Yeah, I have this book by Greta Christina. I think the title was Better Ways to Think About Death That Don't Involve God. I'd have to find the title exactly, but
it's a great title if that's not it.
I'm kind of just, well, it was very similar to that, but like if I were that 80-year-old, I would rather be hopeful about cryonics or medical advances working for my children or my friends' children or just like, other humans that aren't me. Like, it's not all about me. Also, the whole gratitude about like, man, it sure was cool that I was able to be here. And instead of thinking about fake magic stuff and being all consoled by it, I'd rather spend my last few minutes kind of having experience. I don't know, that like maybe the experiences are just like being in incredible pain, but you're not gonna, I don't know if souls are really gonna make that much better.
Yeah, I think to be fair, like when you're being consoled by the noble lie of afterlife-ism, you're not like consciously aware that you're being consoled by the noble lie of afterlife-ism, right? You just feel safe and secure. And so, like, while it would be great to know that like medical science will keep my grandchildren from dying or something, if I actually just thought like I don't want that because they're going to join me in heaven in 60 years, like if I really believe that in my heart of hearts, like I feel like that would be probably a great way to feel. Maybe. Well, how could it not be?
Yeah.
If you thought heaven was a great place and you
actually,
thought you'd
yeah.
see everybody you cared about and they'd all see you later, like I remember when I was a teenager, I knew somebody whose parents were young earth creationists and they were like super fundamentalist, religious people, and one of their sisters died and they were like distraught, seeking therapy for months, and they were like a wreck about it. And like I totally understood because I wasn't at the stage at that time where I was like 14 where like I would be okay with somebody that I cared about in my family dying or something. But I wasn't quite so tactless to ask like, why does this bother you? Like, aren't you going to see her again in 30 years? Like, isn't she like way better off now than she was a month ago when she was alive here on Earth because this place sucks compared to heaven? So at least in one use case, and I'm given to understand more, people say they're comforted by this, but they really aren't. Like, it's still terribly distressing and stuff. So
Yeah, I remember being a Christian kid and believing in heaven and then still being very scared of death and not wanting my friends and family and pets to die.
it's like part of you knew. That's interesting.
So, well, yeah, I mean, I think most people are probably compartmentalizing that because, like, we still cry at funerals. We don't, like, laugh and go, oh, it's great that this person died. Or we don't all commit suicide because heaven's so great.
Right. Well, like I think the what do you call it? The mimetic advantage of that is like you can't your meme can't say if you die you get here no matter what, because if everyone believes that going there is great, they'll all just kill themselves immediately, right? You have to throw in the package. Everyone gets in unless you kill yourself.
Yeah.
Right. That's why suicide's a mortal sin. Yeah.
I guess moral of the story is, unless you plan to have $100,000 when you die in cash, or the inflation-adjusted equivalent, get insurance now and sign up for cryonics.
Yeah.
And honestly, you'd have to sign up for cryonics anyway, but also get the insurance to fund it.
Yeah. The 5-second pitch is that Cryonics Institute charges $120 a year, which is substantially less than your Netflix subscription.
Or one-time payment of $1,000.
Exactly, yeah. So if you're planning on being a member for more than 10 years, you save money that way. Or 9 years, mind over math.
I have now reached the point where I'm saving money.
Nice.
Yeah.
I need to do that this year, I think. Mine re-ups in May. And a life insurance policy for a healthy-ish 20-something-year-old is like $30 a month, which is nothing to take a stick at for a lot of people. It was hard on me the first few years, but like if you can swing it, man, look at the rates for signing up for life insurance in your 50s. It's hundreds of dollars a month.
Yeah.
It's insane. So,
and just the fact that if I were to get cancer tomorrow, I wouldn't be like, well, shit, I'm probably fucked. I mean, I'm still probably fucked, but like at least now I have that glimmer of hope. Whereas if I were to get it tomorrow, I'm like, damn it, it's too late for me to get life insurance now. What am I gonna do?
this is the kind of thing that you should have set up.
Yeah,
before
I
you need
should
it.
have. Yes, exactly. As they say in Poland, it's too late to dig the well once your house is already on fire.
I thought it was going to be... never mind. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds good.
All right, we're getting close to the end, so we got to finish this up.
Sounds good.
Go ahead.
I was just going to... Oh, well, I'll save this for the non-existent side topic section that we'll get to after we plug the next time posts.
Okay.
We have Scope Insensitivity, one of my favorites. I think everyone's familiar with it at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And One Life Against the World, which sounds super dramatic and exciting, so stay tuned.
Excellent.
Or read ahead and join us in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and links will be, as always, at thebayesianconspiracy.com.
That's right.